Hello everyone, thank you for coming back to yet another episode of The Gloving Paradigm. I am your host, Peter, aka LPD8 Dubuque, and this week is going to be a very interesting week for this kind of topic because, in all honesty, I don't know why it took me so long to actually consider covering this topic, but that doesn't really matter at this point anymore because I'm going to cover it now, so, I'm kind of getting terrible at this. I know it's kind of getting really bad, but you know what? We all learn in our own little ways, like I've always said. So, what am I covering this week is basically what I'm going to be calling the basic upkeep maintenance. Now, what am I referring to is basically just keeping up with your lights, keeping up with your gloves, keeping up with all the accessories and everything that you use for your gloving practices and performances. So in this case, it would be your lights, the casings, the diffusers, your gloves themselves, even the carrying equipment that you use to carry your gloves in, depends on what you're using, so on and so forth, Basically, this episode is just going to be this huge, tips and tricks type episode where it kind of gives you a good idea of how a lot of people maintain their gloves and keep their things clean and keep them in their top shape, So going on with that is basically what is the maintenance upkeep is, just a basic routine, which one cleans and repairs all of their equipment. That's just basically what I'm trying to get at, So, of course, I already covered, the gloves, lights, casings, diffusers. Main reasons why these things do happen is, battery corrosion is a thing that we do have to be aware of. Number one reason is because you have your lights in the gloves and you're moving around and your hands start to sweat and everything kind of just starts getting a little damp in there, and once things start to accumulate, the corrosion starts to happen. Now, there is one thing I do want to let people know, that you should not be even talking about galvanic corrosion. Galvanic corrosion is not similar to what battery corrosion is. Galvanic corrosion is when two metals are put together and they're exposed to the elements. So if you think like in the shipyards, when you look at ships and you see all their stuff, all the bolts and stuff sticking out and they have all the rust going around it, that's galvanic corrosion. So we don't have to worry about that. Mostly just because the materials that we use, we don't have to worry about galvanic corrosion, but battery corrosion is still a huge thing. And I can certainly tell you from my own experience, as well as experience from other people, that battery corrosion is a thing, and it does happen quite often. So you definitely want to keep an eye out for that when you're seeing that. If you're seeing any little white, greenish speckling coming out of your batteries on your lights, that's when you have some corrosion happening, and it needs to be addressed. Okay, so the other thing is when it comes to your equipment, the big one that I know a lot of people don't really look into, but I've seen some pretty gnarly ones. There've been some pretty disgusting looking ones, and it's the casings. Casings can get stained from your skin. It's not like a permanent staining. The best way I can give you an example of this is like with your headlights. When certain old headlights start getting that yellowing happening and it fogs up on the inside, and of course you have to take some cleaner to the top of it, let it sit on there, and then you clean it off and it's all like brand new. It's basically the same thing. We're exposing it to an environment in the gloves with our hands, with all the heat and sweating and all that stuff. Yes, your casings will start to yellow a little bit. Now, I can certainly tell you that yellowing is not going to stay there forever. As long as you are doing your cleaning routine, you will not have that kind of problem. But I've seen people post their casings and they're completely yellow, and it's like the most disgusting thing I've ever seen in my life. Like, honestly, if there was anything in gloving besides sweaty hands touching your face, I would certainly say dirty casings are probably one of the most disgusting things I've seen in the gloving community. Just putting that, I know, and that's like a very small window like examination, but like, to me, that's just how it is. That's what I think of. So when it comes to your basic upkeep maintenance, the main reason why we need to do this is for the longevity of your lights. You spend a good amount of money, especially if you're somebody who bought some of the premium items like the Atoms or the Spectras or the Chroma Control Evos or any of the new stuff that has come out and it's like over $100. Yeah, you want to make sure that this stuff lasts a long while because you spend a good amount of money of it and you want to get the money's worth, right? So that's one main reason. That's pretty much the biggest reason, is just longevity. The other reason is the quality of your lights. I will certainly say I've seen my fair share of lights starting to lose quality points because it's just, you know, if you're not upkeeping them right, they're going to start acting a little bad. And, you know, I can certainly tell you from my own experience, especially with like my chroma controls, I do have to clean the bulbs themselves sometimes because of how much sweat happens. You know, especially if I, you know, don't even take a look at them. Even if you have diffusers on, like, you know, everybody should know that I use cube diffusers. That's my thing. Yeah, the sweat and stuff can still get into your bulb while you have the diffuser on. So don't sit there and think like, oh, I have a diffuser on, it's not going to get dirty. No, it will get dirty. Trust me. If it can get in there, it's going to get in there. Like, you know, so that's definitely something you want to keep in mind. And the other reason why we should be doing this is for budget considerations. If you're somebody like me who just doesn't have a whole lot of money to be throwing around, you know, these are ways to help you kind of save money and save a few bucks while also getting the money's worth out of the gloves that you're using. Now, I know there are some people in the community that are probably scoffing at this because they're like, well, whites are cheap, you know, you can just buy them in bulk, and that's totally fine if you want to do that. You know, for somebody like me who just doesn't have the money to sit there and be like, oh yeah, let me just go buy some bulk and stuff. Or, you know, I'm just the type of person who really wants to get their money's worth out of the product that they buy. So, you know, so washing your gloves is never a bad thing. And, you know, if you're that type of person who needs, you know, who just wants to wash their gloves to make them last a lot longer and before they have to buy new ones, that's totally fine. If you're the type of person who buys new ones but still wants to get the gloves worn out a little bit more, that's fine too. You know, that's all fine and dandy, and that's what I kind of go for. At least for me, you know, I'm always very budget considerate, and when it comes to budget considerations, I definitely want to kind of expound that onto you guys so you guys can actually take that into consideration. Because like I said, I know most of you guys probably don't have a whole lot of money to just be throwing around buying a crap load of, you know, whites and crap load of batteries, you know, so trying to find ways to help save as much as you can is really, really important. So, you know, you got those are your main reasons, you know, and I know a lot of people think it's just not really necessary to do any of this stuff, even though I tend to disagree. If there's one thing that's most important in terms of keeping your lights clean is because of battery corrosion. It's going to eat at the equipment if you let it sit there for too long, and if it eats at the equipment, it's going to destroy it. You know, so that's why it's most important. Now, I will certainly say you don't have to do this every day, nor do you even have to do this every week. You can do this once a month, okay? A very simple outline that you can do once a month to maintain the quality and longevity of your lights. Okay, so let's just say if you want, let's just do as the example of at the end of the month is when you're going to do it. Okay, so every 30th or 31st is when you're going to do it, right? So of course you're going to take out your lights out of your gloves. You're going to take the diffusers. If you're using big diffusers like I am with cubes, you know, you might take those out separately. It all depends on how you do it, but you're going to remove the diffusers, you remove your lights, and you have your gloves. They're all separated. Okay, so first thing that I want to cover is gloves, just because it's really, really simple to do. One of the things I always done is literally let it soak in bleach water, and I will also scrub any dirt parts with a toothbrush. My mom will also suggest to you that if you use OxyClean, that really helps get any of the brown stains out. I will certainly say from my own experience, that's what I do if I'm having some trouble with certain stains to come out of my gloves. OxyClean is a very, very good substitute for bleach if you want to go that route. But yes, I do recommend actually using a toothbrush. It does not need to be an old one. You can buy a new one. Just make sure you label it saying that it's for cleaning, so no one stick that in their mouth. You know, that's kind of disgusting. So, you know, you have that, and then you're going to put it in the wash like normal. My recommendation is definitely put it into a load of whites, so you can actually put some more bleach in there, and it actually helps pull more of that out. You know, and one thing I will certainly say is when it comes to gloves fraying, if it's not frayed too much, you can still use them. If they're frayed a lot, I would recommend replacing them. A thing of note that I definitely want to point out, because I might have somebody ask me, do not use a fabric shaver on your gloves. I learned the hard way that if you put on the gloves and you use the fabric shaver to try to shave off a lot of the fraying, you will nick it in a way that you're going to cause holes. Just from my own experience of learning the hard way, I have nicked holes with the fabric shaver in my gloves, and it just ruined the gloves altogether, especially at the tips. So do not do that unless you know what you are doing. You might be able to get away with just not wearing the gloves and putting it flat on the table and doing it that way. That's totally fine. It's just my recommendation is if you're going to use a fabric shaver to kind of help upkeep on your gloves, please just keep in mind that little tidbit, because I just don't want someone using a fabric shaver and then they eat a hole into their gloves and then they contact me saying, hey, I used one, it ate a hole in my gloves, you didn't tell me about it. I'm telling you right now. So if you're going to use a fabric shaver, just be very, very cautious and very, very delicate with what you're doing with it. Okay, so that's pretty much when it comes to your gloves. It's very simple, self-explanatory. It does help you last a long time. I know with like the magic stretch gloves, after a while the elastic banding on the wrists are going to wear out. So but I've been using ones that are worn out for a long time and they're still good. So goes to tell you how just washing your gloves and keeping maintenance on them is going to show you how long they last. And I can certainly tell you with these stretch gloves that Amazing Lights used to carry, these things are at least like 4 years old and I'm still using them. So that should tell you quite a bit right there. So now moving on to the lights. The lights are relatively easy to do, especially when it comes to just general maintenance. Basically, you're just going to remove it from the casing. You're going to take a Q-tip and dip it into some isopropyl alcohol. My recommendation is anywhere around 90% of isopropyl alcohol. It's usually the best one. It's usually the cleanest and it evaporates the quickest, in my opinion. So doing that. Now, one thing I do have to stress, that when you go to clean your lights and you go to use your Q-tip and stuff, only clean where the batteries touch. Okay, you don't need to clean anywhere else. The casings are are very good at keeping dust particles from touching any of the boards or anything like that. But do not, and I repeat, do not touch your circuit boards with the Q-tip. The only place you need to touch is on the back side where the batteries sit. Okay, and if you are seeing some corrosion on the inside, on the arms, on like the edges, my recommendation is that you just take a Q-tip, well, not Q-tip, a toothpick, excuse me, since it's much smaller, and kind of dip it and kind of rub it on there to help break it up and get it off there. I know certain Q-tips are just not big enough to actually fit underneath the arm. I would not recommend anyone pushing a Q-tip underneath the arm. If it's going to bend it, you're gonna do some damage if you do it that way. So definitely recommend having a toothpick nearby just in case you need to scrape off the sides. But yes, that is the only place you really actually need to touch, is on the contacts only where the batteries sit. Now, when it comes to the bulb, my recommendation is just having a simple wet wipe, like a little alcohol wipe is just enough. Okay, and all you're going to do is just, you have the bulb, and you're just going to take the wipe and you're just going to rub it on the bulb and then you're going to pull it off. And boom, it's easy, easy peasy. That's how easy it is. Okay, now, when it comes to your casings, it really depends on what kind of casings you have. So if you have like futuristic lights where it's just all silicone, very simple thing is you just drop it into some isopropyl alcohol, let it soak for a little bit, and then once it's done, you just pull it out. You turn it inside out a bit, dry out on the inside, let it all evaporate, and you're pretty much good to go. When it comes to like Amazing Lights, it's pretty much the same thing. I just know it kind of gets a little tiresome because you're cleaning both ends. You're holding two pieces to clean for one light. It can be annoying, but nothing wrong. Now, when it comes to soaking, I would recommend no longer than 15 minutes. That's pretty much the only amount of length that you really need to thoroughly let it break through and break down all the stuff that's caked on there. So don't let it like sit there overnight type deal. 15 minutes is all you need. Okay. And of course, when it comes to your diffusers, relatively easy. You just let them, you dip them into some isopropyl alcohol. If you have something like popcorn diffusers or anything like that where it has a lot of little corner and crevices on the surface, a lot of surface area, I should say. Yeah, those are going to need to soak in for a good 15 minutes as well, just because you have those little crevices that you have to get through. If you are using popcorn diffusers, I do recommend getting a nice old toothbrush to help scrape any of the debris that's on the little edges of everything in a popcorn diffuser, so that way you can get it nice and clean. I know certain people do have markings on their popcorn diffusers to help outline the edges. That's totally fine. If you use the Sharpie, I would I would recommend finding something else that's not going to get eaten by isopropyl alcohol, because the isopropyl alcohol will eat the Sharpie off of it. Depending on the certain where you got it from and certain materials, it might actually stain it, so also keep that in mind. So that's pretty much what you got to do. Is just, isopropyl alcohol is your best friend, Q-tips are your best friend. Just do not touch the Q-tip to any of the circuit boards or anything on top where the button is. You will do some damage. This is just recommendations I got a lot from the community. Now, I know some people might say that you just don't have to wash your whites, you could just get them simply replaced. But I know I'm not the only person who's budget conscious, and I definitely want to keep that in mind for those people who are budget conscious like myself. So, if you guys do have any issues or anything like that, you guys can always contact me, and I will be more than willing to talk you through it and help you out and try to get that situated so we can get that resolved. Of course, you guys do know I have various outlets you can hit me up at. The first place you can always hit me up is on my Facebook page, which is aptly named The Gloving Paradigm. You can also find me on Reddit under the username Mutton Chop Guy. As well, you can hit me up at my email, which is muttonchopguy@gmail.com. And of course, I do have a Discord server that you guys can totally get on. It's totally free and it's fun to talk to you guys on there. So don't hesitate to jump on there either. But other than that, that's pretty much for my episode. I know this one was really, really short, but it is a maintenance episode, so there's not a whole in-depth stuff you guys need to go into just to get your lights, maintained. I do want to thank everybody who has liked the page so far. I do want to thank all the new people that have shown up and liked the page. At the time of this recording, I would believe I'm at 186. So, of course, we're only 14 away from being at the 200 mark, and being at the 200 mark means we get another Ask Me Anything live stream from me to you guys, so we can have a lot of fun. You guys get to poke fun at me, all that good stuff. I would definitely like to see you guys there, so be sure to spread the word around, get people in here so we can have another one of those, But yes, that is pretty much all my episode. Once again, thank you guys so much for listening. You guys are absolutely amazing. I love you guys. I am your host, Peter, aka LPD8 Dubuque, and I'll see you guys all next week.